experience. This was 2003. The iPod was just getting going. Digital players hadn't really exploded into the marketplace at the time. And we always thought that if you presented the technology face first, it would be a barrier for people to grab. But if you presented the content face first, people would say, oh, I want the Bill Clinton book. I want the Da Vinci Code book. I want the Chronicles of Narnia book. And so you remove the barrier. So we had to figure out, how do you design it so it looks and feels like content? And I was telling you the story that I was working with my son at home and just took a couple of business cards, and we wanted it to have a AAA battery. So we dropped that AAA battery in between the business cards, taped the whole thing up so it looked like a little wedge triangle, and then took a picture of Mickey Mouse and pasted it on the front and took it on the plane with me with my partners out to IDEO. And I showed it to them. I said, what is this, holding up the Mickey Mouse side? And they said, well, that's Mickey Mouse. They didn't say, that's an MP3 player, that's a digital device. And when I turned it over, I had hand-drawn on the back of the business card the buttons. And I think it really sort of solidified for us that what we were talking about was something that had a cover, something that had a spine, that emulated the characteristics of content first and had the technology built in behind it.
And what role did they play? So you gave them a concept. What role did they play to take that concept to?
Well, they actually made it happen. I mean, you know, we were walking around with pieces of paper and ideas, and they helped us to understand exactly what it would take to do that. They, you know, made it so they had good hand feel, so it had the right weight, so it didn't fall over. They figured out what kind of technology should be inside of it. They helped identify for us a contract manufacturer, helped us do the engineering of the product as well. And they were great connectors. You know, part of being successful is to be a collector of people and to build connections, and they were great connectors for us, created legitimacy for the product, as well as sort of the final design attributes of the product.
So what takes two guys from Chagrin Falls to say, we're going to work with the most preeminent design firm, or one of them,
right?
Because they say that knowing there's
right.
one here too,
right.
But one of them to get out to California, just, you know, saying, we can't afford those people. How did you make that journey out there?
Right. Well, actually, we were working with local friends of mine in Ohio who were product designers, excellent people, who were helping us think through the early conceptual nature of this. Before we got to the physical design, the conceptual idea that it would be content that played itself, much like a seashell, that if you picked it up at the seashore and you hold it to your ears, instantly you hear the ocean, no barriers. And they helped us think through that. They helped us do the costing to say, can you build something like that? But when we got to the industrial design, a little bit of luck and a little bit of necessity came into play. The luck was that one of my three partners was at the doctor's office. He was sitting and waiting. He looked over. He saw a magazine poking out of a pile. He pulled it out, and on the cover was IDEO, which was, I think it was a Business Week magazine, and they were featuring IDEO. He read it. He called me from the waiting room, and he said, have you ever heard of this company called IDEO? I said, of course, they're the best in the country. I absolutely know who they are. Well, why aren't we working with them instead of, you know, the firm we're working with? And I said, well, first of all, they're expensive. They're the best in the world. I'm happy to cold call them, you know, if we think that's the road we want to go. So one piece of it was they came onto our radar screen just in exactly that way, pure luck. The other thing was, as good as our partners were locally, and they were as good as IDEO from an industrial design standpoint, quite candidly, and we've got great ones here, Nottingham, Spurk, and other great companies in our region, we needed a company that would make us legitimate. We were three guys above a liquor store with an idea to build a product, never having built a product before. IDEO being the designer of it, the people who invented the Palm, the people who built the first Microsoft mouse, would give instant credibility nationally to the product. So we made the decision to move, not because inherently IDEO was better than the local players, but because IDEO's reputation, in addition to its talent, is what we needed at the time. So it was the luck of finding IDEO in that moment, deciding to reach out to them, and the necessity of having an industrial design partner who could legitimate the product just by their very participation. And we cold called them. I made up, you know, the excuse that I was going to be in Palo Alto for other reasons, which of course was not the case, and said, would you give me 20 minutes of your time? And went in with our little cardboard kind of thing and pitched them, and we spent an hour and a half together, and they agreed to work on the project.
It's interesting, you talk a lot about networking and how you can associate with people who are successful, and that you were amazed that someone at that level was willing to take your call.
Right.
And I think that that's an important element, that networking in a certain way, and it's not just meeting anybody, but meeting anybody helps you, but that idea of being with people who can give you more value than you might have on your own.
Yeah,
It's sort of the
I think you
synergy.
learn to invite people on the journey with you. And it's amazing. People want to be around ideas and energy that isn't positive, no matter where you are, whether you're already successful or you're on that journey towards success yourself. If you can engage someone in that narrative story about where you're going, and they're leaning in just a little and they're saying, I think you might be able to do this. I want to be along on the ride. You get great partners to participate.
I'm with Christopher Celeste. We're talking about Playaway, this incredible product that many people might say, well, I got my iPod, why would I need it? But it's gotten a lot of traction in a lot of areas, and we're going to talk about how the actual business got built from an innovation standpoint and how he found out how it resonated with customers around the world. This is Innovation NEO. I'm with Christopher Celeste, and our next segment we're going to talk about the business growth and the way you take an idea and bring it from its concept to reality.